in my veins, blue in one eye, red, white, and blue in my brain. I'm bulldog born, bulldog, that's my breed. I was born to follow where the bulldogs lead.
Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to introduce, you know who it is, it's Dougie Hawkins.
Hello, Matty. Now listen, I'm up and about.
Yes.
I'm excited because this bloke we're going to talk to and about, or you're going to talk to him, is one of my favourites. For a short period, may have been only 2 years, 85, 86, I reckon he played 2 years. Probably played 30-odd games in those 2 years with the mighty Bulldogs. And, Matty, you announce who it is. He's one of my favourites.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's the Shark himself, fabulous Phil Maylin.
Phil Maylin, Matty, what a fantastic man, fantastic bloke, great player. I got a feeling, Matty, he might have started in Adelaide before he come to Carlton and then come to us. Does that sound right?
Yeah, he was from Woodville.
Woodville, is he?
I think it was in the SANFL to start with. He played many seasons there, so he came as a mature age, played at Carlton. I think it might have been in 1980, and they were flying, weren't they, Carlton at that stage? And played in the 81 and 82 Premiership teams.
He played in both, Matty.
Played in both of those, and he was the runner-up best and fairest in 82 in the Premiership team. But unfortunately, he lost a little bit of favour in 83-4, played a lot fewer games and found himself on the outer and fortuitously ended up at the Kennel.
No, you're right, Matty. It must have been about 80 and he played in those two, 81, 82. So 1980, I was 20. He must have been around 24, Matty. Great player. Number 13, I reckon, with them and 17 with us, Matty. I remember him at Carlton. Terrific play. Never with the Wayne Johnsons and Jimmy Buckleys and Kenny Sheldon and these type of blokes, Alex Marcoux. That midfield fleet were just outstanding. And, dual premiership player. Carlton Footy Club. You can't take that away from the Shark. And then, Matty, I don't know why did he come to the Bulldog? What happened with the Carlton? Did he get the chop or did he just... We approached him and he come to us, or?
Well, I was hoping you might be able to tell us. We're going to have to ask him, but we got him. That was the important thing because he had an impact, didn't he, in 85?
100%, Matty. His 85 season was good, really good. His whole season, and his 3 finals appearances were terrific. The first one we got smashed by Hawthorn by 97 points. He never didn't put his white flag up. He just kept playing like the Shark would play. The game that we had to bounce back as a group, as a team, as individuals, because we were embarrassed, as Mick Malthouse said to us, that we're all embarrassed. Your family should be embarrassed. We were, and we needed to make a stand. I thought his performance in that semi-final against North Melbourne was outstanding. He may have had 30. He would have had that, and if he had 30, they were good 30 possessions. He was a very, very good player in that game, that semi-final against North. As we all had great players all over the ground, we just gelled and we needed to. And from the brilliant coaching of Mickey Malthouse to just regroup us from our absolute flogging the week before was just great coaching. And the Shark was just brilliant. He was just absolutely brilliant. His prelim was good too. His prelim was all right. Prelim was pretty good. We just fell short by 10 points as a group, and we've moved from 97 points to 10 points in 2 weeks.
Right, absolutely.
Against Hawthorn. It's not a bad effort, is it, Matty?
Oh, my goodness. You know how many times I've replayed that last quarter over in my head and, what might be. I'm sure you have, Dougie.
Yeah, Matty, I look back over that period and, it's actually gut-wrenching and shattering. We had a chance to knock Essendon over, and Shark would have been a big part of that. And the thing about Phil Maylin too, what I love, Matty, he had terrific balance.
Right.
He had really good balance. He was both-sided, had super courage, actually happy to give one out as well. He's happy to have a crack. He wasn't scared to take. He wouldn't take a backward step. He'd just keep coming forward, and he had a heap of ability. Again, he was a smooth mover. had explosive pace, and he ran straight at the footy, Matty. There was no shirking anything about Phil Maylin. It was hard, Matty, to pick a negative in his game, because I just touched on it, all the factors you got to have be a good player. And he had it all. He had it all. The balance, both-sided, good courage, good endurance, quick. Phil Maylin was a full package. And people would listen to this and go, "Oh, I remember Phil. I might remember Phil Maylin." Go watch the video. Watch the North Melbourne semi-final in '85 and watch his ability to explode away from a contest and kick the ball both sides and run straight at the footy. Fantastic, Matty.
Love hearing that. And do you know what? The game, I was thinking about this earlier in the week, and I remember the day that I actually fell in love with the Bulldogs. It was round 20 of 1985. It was a really muddy day at the Western Oval. It was Bulldogs versus Hawthorn, and there were only 10 goals kicked in the entire game. 5 from both teams, Hawthorn and the Dogs, but only 1 goal was kicked at the Geelong Road end, and it involved yourself and fabulous Phil Maylin. Do you remember that passage of play? Because it's etched in my brain.
I do, Matty. I remember it clearly. I'm playing on the great Robert Dippier Domenico. Muddy day, which would have suited a Dipper. I played a bit on the outer wing. Sorry, on the Teddy Whitten grandstand wing. Oh. And that was when I kicked that goal down to the Geelong Road end. Is that correct? The scoreboard end. And what it was a Terry Wallace kick from centre at half-back flank. I was playing with Hawthorn, obviously. He's kicked a scrubber. I've marked it. Dipper's about 5 metres behind me. I handball sort of across Dipper to Phil Maylin. The 1-2. Shark gave it back to me, and I was about 80 metres out. And Matty, I was about 30 out and just made the distance. It was a muddy day. And I remember the last quarter, Steve McPherson down the other and kicked a torpedo, about 70 metres went through. So, but you're right, Matty. The only goal kicked that day was the one that me and Shark was in. And we embraced after it. You can see, remember, 7-17 hugging each other. Oh. Fantastic.
Oh, fantastic. I was an 8-year-old. I was in the front row, directly behind the goals where you kicked it, dunk. And I've watched it. I can see little me just going ballistic. And then you and Phil just embracing as you describe it. Honestly, the newspapers, all the telephone directories were just thrown up in the air. It was just like a party time. And I just remember thinking, I love this club. This is magic.
Yeah. Matty, it was a fighting win. It really was a fighting win. And in the mud and the slosh and all that sort of stuff. And finals only around the corner. We needed to get that to show Hawthorn that we could certainly play. And Matty, only a couple of weeks later, they bashed us. They bashed us in that qualifying about 2 or 3 weeks later. So, but that day, Matty, was pretty special. It really was. And you're right. I remember it clearly. I'll never lose that memory with the Shark. And I'll say it again, Matty. He was a fantastic player. And you know what? He was a better bloke. He's a really good bloke. And you hear that about blokes. Everyone says, "Oh, he's a good bloke. He's a good bloke." Mate, Shark was a good bloke. And if you had something to say about someone that wasn't great, you'd listen. Because he rarely ever bagged anybody or had a crack at anyone. But if he had something to say, he meant it. And, mate, he was a terrific player.
And did you, as a Premiership player, did you guys capitalise on his expertise and his knowledge? When he came into the club, did he help out with strategy?
Yeah, Matty, we did. Mick brought him in, obviously, with that experience of playing finals footy and he told us about the tempo and the pace of the game and the crowd and all that. And we all listened to it. We didn't actually understand or didn't know what we're going to get because a lot of us never played finals footy at that highest level, which I had, and a lot of us hadn't done it. I think probably Budgie might have. Tony Bahaja may have been in the 70s. Some blokes might have played in the state finals footy, but not at the highest level of VFL footy. So we probably only had, Matty, Budgie, Tony Bahaja, Phil Maylin, and that's about it.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it. The rest of the blokes from Perth, they all played finals in Perth, but that's not the same as playing VFL finals. Yeah. So that's about, Matty, that's it. So we're all very young and very raw and didn't know what to expect and didn't, but they saw Hawthorn, they showed us what it was about. But Phil Maylin, mate, his semi-final was just outstanding, Matty. It was just fantastic.
Well,
I love the Shark. I love the Shark.
I cannot wait to speak to him about it, Dougie. And you can hear it as the doorbell. Let's bring in
Go
the
Shark. Go on, you Phil.
Awesome. Thanks, Dougie.
On you, Matty.
Ladies and gentlemen, he may have retired decades ago, but it's still not safe to go into the waters because look who's drifted inside the kennel today. It's Shark Maylin. Welcome, Phil. How you doing?
Good on you, Matt. Yeah, lovely to be with you, buddy. Good on you.
Yeah, fantastic. Shark, listen, I want to start by asking, like I ask all my guests, how would you describe yourself as a player in your own words?
Good one. I would say hardworking. I considered myself very much a team player and just tried 100% every week.
Awesome. Now, Shark, as a child growing up in South Australia, your brother Graham tells me that you were quite the sportsman growing up and following in your father's footsteps as a cricketer and as a footballer. Your mum was a teacher. She didn't get her way because school didn't take priority, obviously.
Well, no, Matty. I left school at the age of 15. Got a bit tired of school pretty early, but I love sport. I wasn't, to be honest, I was no good at cricket, but I played every week. But footy was my passion right from when I was a kid, and I just had a ball in my hand the whole time.
Love it. Can you tell me how your footy journey started? So where did you begin your junior career, and how did you evolve?
Well, I started at a club called Royal Park, which is close to Woodville. Near, actually, the actual club's near the West Lakes footy ground.
Yes.
Where they used to play the AFL. Yeah, that was the club I started at, under 8s, and just progressed through there and got nominated to go and play at Woodville in the under 17s.
Unreal. Can I ask you, how did you get the nickname Shark?
Well, it's not what you probably think it is. There was a bloke at Carlton who was the president of the Carltonians, which is one of the major sponsorship groups at Carlton, and still is. His name was Dickie Merton. Poor soul's passed away now, but he thought my last name was Maylin, fish.
Yes.
And he called me Shark for some reason, and it stuck. So it's not anything devious or shady. It's very simple.
Love it. Well, look, you touched on the fact that you ended up at Woodville in the SANFL. It was an era that was both brilliant and brutal, wasn't it? Can you tell us the impact that you had at that level? Obviously, you became the captain. You played about 8 seasons, is that right there?
Yeah. I started in the under-17s, and I actually wasn't getting a game in the early times in my under-17s. I was missing out. And then one week, one of the players withdrew late, and they threw me into the centre, and I got best on ground, and it went from there. And the next year I was captain of the under-17s, and we played in the Premiership. And then the next year when I turned 18, I played for the Woodville seniors in the SANFL.
Amazing. Well, I understand you had a huge impact, and it wasn't long before some VFL clubs were circling. And in 1979, am I right in saying that Carlton sent down some scouts to watch you in one of the elimination or one of the early finals, and it didn't end so well for you. You were knocked out.
Wasn't a great day, man. Wasn't a great day. Shane O'Sullivan recalls the story to me because, well, I think everyone knows Shane O'Sullivan at Carlton. He's been there for a very long time, and he's a great man. And he tells the story that he arrived at the airport from Melbourne to Adelaide a bit late. So he jumped in the cab and he asked the driver to turn the game on because it was the first final. And it was the first final Woodville had ever played in the history of the comp.
Wow.
of its existence. And it was only the first 30 seconds, and I got knocked out. And he told the cab driver to turn around, and he went straight back to the airport. Put it back. Yeah.
Wow, wow. Well, it clearly didn't extinguish, your opportunity, because I understand that Shane O'Sullivan was back on the phone, and as a 23-year-old, he arranged for you to come down and have a practice match. Is that right? And you're obviously impressed, because my understanding that you were paid something like $700 at Woodville, but Carlton offered you a slightly more substantial sum.
Yes, I did, Matt. I actually also played a practice match at St Kilda, and I played with St Kilda and with Carlton in a practice match. But Carlton, after the practice match, took me into the room, and as you said, I was on $700 a year. They offered me $16,000, and I signed up on the spot.
Yeah,
Believe it.
Wow, you'd almost fall off your chair. But what a pay rise that was. But so, are you telling me you didn't fancy playing with Mad Dog Muir at St Kilda then?
Mate, I got in the cab with him. Alan Killigrew, if you remember, was involved with St Kilda at that point in time. He picked us both up at the airport, and yeah, Robbie's he was a good player, but oh, geez, he was a bit of a loose cannon, the old Robbie, and I thought, gee, he's a bit of a weird cat, but anyway, we thought good. He went on to have a good career, and I decided on Carlton, which was a good move.
Brilliant. Well, it seemed it worked out well. So this is a Bulldog podcast, Shark, obviously, but I want to explore Carlton a tiny bit, if that's okay, before we move on to the Doggies. So you arrive at Carlton. This is a Premiership team. So what was it like as a young kid walking in 1980 and seeing these, incredible, famous faces? How daunting was that?
Well, the funny thing was, Matt, that I wasn't picked to play in the first game in 1980. But I got a phone call from Wes Loss, who was the chairman of selectors at that point in time. And he said, we've organised a flight for you for Friday night. You're flying over, you're playing in the first game against Collingwood at Victoria Park. And that was after the 79 Premiership.
Wow.
I hadn't met the players. I'd only played in the practice game with them. I hadn't trained with them. But we were over Friday night, and Wes housed me at his place in Toorak on Friday night. We went to the game, and I met the players in the rooms before the game, and history says that Carlton played pretty well that day and knocked them over. So it was a great experience for me. I was very nervous, man.
How did you go?
I think I went all right. Yeah, I think I went all right. I couldn't tell you my stats, but anyway, that was one good thing. But I think they were reasonably happy with me because I played the next week.
Well, reasonably happy is probably the most modest call on the planet, because in that first season you were selected to play State of Origin footy. Yeah, I was for South Australia. Yeah. I don't know if I was deserving of it, but I think because I was playing VFL, maybe it holds a higher weight with selection. But I was very proud of playing for South Australia. What was it like playing with the likes of Graham Corns and against a Calvin Templeton or a Robbie Flower? Yeah, well, I played against Robbie Flower a few times, and actually that game, I actually swapped jumpers with Robbie Flower. So I've got his number 2 Guernsey at home now. Yeah, it's the State Vic Guernsey, and I'm very proud of it. He was a great player. Wow, unbelievable. Well, just in your 44th game, you ascended to the Premiership podium at the MCG. What an ascent that must have been. You must have been pinching yourself. Yeah, well, I'd only signed for 2 years. So 81 was my last year of my contract. Yep. And we won the Premiership, and I said, well, I can't go back to Adelaide now after we've just played in the Premiership. So I signed up for another 3 years, and thank God I did, because
I created some great memories with a lot of people.
Absolutely. What was it like in the early days when you'd go and play against the Bulldogs? I'd like to know who some of your battles were when you were a Carlton player. Who'd you play on and what was it like?
Well, actually, the blokes I played against were the blokes I played with. Yeah, so it was, footy is, you play against a bloke, but you shake his hand at the end and you have a beer with him and there's no animosity. You're just out there to do your best for your club. And, I played against Stevie Wallace and Steve McPherson and Doug the Hawk. All those blokes were my opponents. Jimmy Edmund, who I was great mates with, and it was fantastic playing the Dogs. I think we got them a few times back in those days, in the early '80s, but the Dogs came good in the end.
Certainly did. So let's explore this. So by the end of 1984, you'd played 4 seasons at Carlton, 4 or 5 seasons at Carlton.
Yeah.
5. So that's 89 games at Carlton. You'd won the best first year play. You'd obviously played state footy. How is it that you come to leave the Blues?
Well, I don't know. I probably it's all my fault, to be quite honest. I think I lost a bit of passion and what I built my footy on, which was giving 100%. I probably wasn't, with 2 premierships under my belt, I probably maybe slackened off a little bit, Matt.
Wow.
And I tore my hamstring in pre-season in 1985, in the pre-season. And at that point in time, Carlton were looking to recruit David Rees-Jones from the Swans. So there were people had to go, and I think that they thought I was on a bit of a slide. So Ian Collins, the general manager, said, "Time's up for you." So I rang Shane O'Sullivan, who was the general manager at Footscray at that point in time. And it went from there.
Wow, isn't it funny, just the cycle of footy and how that comes around and those connections come back and a new door opens. Amazing. So tell us about your arrival at the Kennel. What was it like? I guess the contrast of having this high-flying club that you're from. You've landed in the western suburbs. We're a battling western suburbs working-class club. How was the contrast and how were you welcomed in?
Well, it's the Dogs are not what they were back then. I understand, and they were a working man's club. There's no doubt about that. And I thought it was fantastic. The players were unbelievable. They welcomed me with open arms. We had Mick Moldhouse, who was only, I think, first or second year coach at that point in time. He was fantastic. And I fit in like a glove with those blokes.
Unreal. Well, Dougie just speaks about you with absolute reverence and love. That's for sure. So tell us about coming back to the pre-season. All right. So you've got a hammy. You've come back. You've walked onto the Doggies track. Tell us about the magic of that pre-season, because it was one that I fell in love with the club. We hadn't played finals since 1976, and suddenly we had this pre-season out of the box that hope was returning. Tell us a little bit about that, if you could.
Well, I just thought that we had players that were coming into their own as good footballers. If you have a look through our list back then, and my memory is fading, but on every line we had A-graders playing. Right from full forward with Beasley, Edmund on the half-forward flank, Brian Royal, you go through the centre, Hawke, cross half-back, you had, Stephen Wallace and, the ruckman, I'm trying to think of his name.
Andrew Purser.
Andrew Purser was, really good player. We had another bloke, centre half-back.
Peter Foster.
We had Foster, Jimmy Sewell, we had Rick Kennedy.
Oh.
We had them all. We had them all. Did I mention Brian Royal, one of the greatest players I've ever seen?
Wow.
They were all there.
Yep.
You know, the McPherson brothers. We had a pretty good team, and I'm actually really regret 1985 because if we'd have beaten Hawthorn in the prelim, we would have beaten Essendon. I have no doubt in my mind.
Well, we're going to explore that a little bit as we get through. But yeah, that's music to my ears. You failed to mention a little nuggety back pocket player who went on to win a Brownlow as well.
What's his name? Brad someone? He wasn't a bad player, was he?
He wasn't bad.
I used to pick up his opponent most of the time.
Absolutely. So well, I've got a few questions about that a little later as well. Terrific. So here we are, round one. As fate has it, you turn up at Princes Park against your old mob, Carlton. And, you know, I imagine coming in as a visitor, it must have been a really strange experience. Obviously, you hadn't quite gotten your body right for round one at that point. But what was it like sitting in the stands, watching the Dogs take Carlton to task?
It was okay for me because it wasn't like I elected to leave Carlton. I got told to leave, so and I'd made lifelong friends at Carlton. As I've got a lot of friends at the Dogs now, and so it was footy even back then was, well, you are where you are. We just got to move on with it. And of course, I was a Footscray man at that point in time, so I was pretty happy they won.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Simon Beasley kicked 8 or 9 goals on Old Dooley, which doesn't happen very often, so it was magical. Yep.
It was, and yeah, I don't think Dooley let too many slip by him like that, so
no.
That's one for Beasley for sure.
Yep. So, Bill, come round 5. Here we are against the top of the table Bombers at Western Oval, and you get to pull on the red, white and blue Guernsey for the very first time. Can you remember that day?
Was it at Windy Hill, was it?
No, it was at home. It was at the Kennel.
I was at the Kennel. Well, we won, I know that.
We did.
Well, because we beat Essendon every game that year. Yeah, so I do remember that. I don't remember how I went though, Matt.
Well, you kicked a goal. I think you had about 20 touches, Phil, and the crowd immediately loved you. I was there that day, and we were so excited to see you because you were one of only 2 players, yourself and Tony Bahajar, who'd had finals experience. So we sort of felt that you guys coming in as veterans or the experienced, successful players were going to, sort of have an impact on our culture. Did you sort of feel that?
Well, I think, a lot of players sort of spoke to me about, footy and success because I'd played in a couple of premierships, which obviously they hadn't at that point in time. Not that that made me any better than anyone else at the club, but I think it's just having that experience in pressure games and, things are really on the line that I hope I passed on some sort of advice to a lot of the players. You mentioned Budge. I forgot about Budge. Yeah, I went to Cork for Budge. That's another story.
Yep. I've got that here for you. Don't worry.
Keep going.
No escape. That year, you touched on the fact that we had champion players on each line, but I'm not sure if you know this, but that was the highest goal-scoring season in the history of the Bulldogs, Footscray Western Bulldogs. We had Simon Beasley kick 105, Les Bamblett, who you didn't mention, kicked 51. But we had something like another 5 players who kicked over 30 goals. So what was it about that brand of footy that Mickey Malthouse had us playing?
Well, I think because he was new. He was. I really enjoyed playing under Mick. He was fantastic because he was just new boy into the job and he wanted to try and change things. And we had the players that could run. Yeah, from every line, and I thought that it suited our play really well. And then having targets up forward like we had, it makes all the puzzle come together when, you can have blokes like Kennedy, Rick, that holds up the end, and then he gives it to the runners like Wally and McPherson and those blokes, and then we go from there. Yeah, so I thought that the major thing for us was we were very close as teammates. Yes.
How important is that unity? Because when the Dogs won the 2016 flag, that's all you heard. That connection and that belief and trust in each other was enormous.
I think it's one of the major things in a footy club is that if everyone is best mates with everyone, then there's not a lot of problems there, unless they just can't play. But if they can play and they care about each other, which is what I think the good teams have, and the culture, which we had a good culture back then. Yeah, we had good times, I must admit, but we trained hard under Mick and we played accordingly.
Brilliant. That's music to my ears, Shark. Well, the magic carpet ride continued that year, and I remember being a 9-year-old sitting in the front row in round 20. We played Hawthorn at Whitten Oval, at Western Oval. It was a waterlogged day. I don't know if you remember it. There was only 10 goals scored for the whole match, and in fact, there was only 1 goal scored to the Geelong Road end. But there was a really unbelievable bit of play where it featured yourself and he. I don't know if you remember it.
I do. I do remember it, very much so. It's one of the few. I've seen it on Facebook and YouTube a few times. People have put it up. Yeah, it was a great moment, and Dougie, I got on magnificently well with Dougie at the club at that point in time, and I knew when he had the ball that if you got yourself in the right spot, you'd get it. Yeah, then you just got to give it back to him.
Well, that play that you talk about, absolutely. He said he put it up for you, and he just said, "It's coming back to me, Shark. That's the 1-2," and you obliged beautifully, and he rammed it home. And
I gave it to me to get it back.
Absolutely, he did. But it ended up being the difference between winning and losing that day. We were able to beat the Hawks. We played them 4 times that year, and it was the only time we beat them. But what an incredible game, and I guess it proved that we weren't pretenders.
No, of course it wasn't. And the players believed that they were contenders, and like you said, Matt, we made a prelim, so we were right up there. We just didn't do it at the end.
Yeah.
It's always cursed.
Absolutely. So we did make it to finals, right? It's the first time in 9 years. Here we are, 1st of September, and we've got the Hawks. A team that we've beaten in round 20, as we've just discussed. But we got absolutely shellacked. Is it for a young team to sort of play in a final? Can it be those sort of overwhelming experiences, or what sort of went wrong for us that day?
My memory, we didn't have a great day. And what you're saying, Matt's probably all right. Lack of experience in finals. Just some blokes can have a bad day. I still don't know the solution to it all, to be honest, and I don't think anyone does. But certainly experience in playing in finals is what helps. There's no doubt. And I thought we regrouped pretty well after that.
So tell us about the regrouping, because the next week Simon Beasley ran through his 100th goal and we turned it around. You put on an absolute masterclass, alongside your best mate in Dougie, and we tore the heart out of North Melbourne.
I don't remember me putting on a masterclass, by the way, Matt. You might be a little bit generous in your comments, but I think we wanted to redeem ourselves, and that's the culture we had at that club at that point in time, and that was led by Mick and the senior players, and everyone jumped on board, and we didn't want to let the season just waste away, especially after that performance against Hawthorn. So, we were one of the best sides in the comp that year, and I think we showed it that day.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you may recall, I'm not sure if you do, but Mickey Fruitcake Ford was knocked out really early in that game, and he had played on Lethal Lee Matthews in that round 20 game that we spoke about, and held him goalless that day, or maybe to 1 goal rather. So he wasn't available for this preliminary final, and I guess Mick sort of had to make a decision. Do I play Zeno on him? Do I play Brad Hardy? And he ended up rolling the dice with Brad, and Brad had a day out. His first 3 quarters, clearly best on ground. He revolutionised, I guess, the back pocket role that year, just with his attacking style. But things were about to change in that last quarter. What are your memories from that day? And I'd love to hear your sort of thoughts on on how that sort of unfolded, particularly with Brad and Lee's kind of battle.
Oh, where do you want me to go, Matt? He had a pretty good game, Brad. What I can remember of it. I know I was tagging Terry Wallace, I think, that day. And he did a good job for 3 quarters. But Lee Matthews is probably the best player I've ever seen play the game.
Wow.
And he was always going to get off the leash. And Brad was an attacking player. And sometimes the two don't combine when you're on the best board in the history of the game for a small man. So anyway, look, that's the way it went. It's not Brad's fault. We just had to kick more goals than they did. We didn't. So there's plenty of other things went wrong that day. I thought, what did we get beaten by? Not much, though.
10 points.
Yes, it was 10 points. So, you only got to have a couple of lucky breaks and you beat Hawthorn and we're in a granny. But it didn't work out that way. Everyone talks about Brad Hardy, but there's 21 other blokes playing in the team. Yeah.
And
you probably look at everything.
And a lot went right that day, didn't it? I mean, you talk about you playing on plough there. That was an incredible battle, and we had Terry on the show, and he said, how much he admired you and his tussles with you because you were a hard man to play on. How were your battles with plough?
Well, plough just kept running. That's all he did. And that's where his nickname comes from. He just kept running and ploughing him for the ball. And he's not the quickest man in Australia, but he had football nous. He knew where the ball was, and he just would not stop. Yeah, and that's what made him a Hall of Famer, right? Because he just kept going and going and going. He had a great fortitude, and he was just, he's a star.
Unreal. I can imagine. So you've mentioned, obviously, Plough and Lee Matthews. If I could ask you just to name your best players of all time that you played on, I guess those two are up there. Would you agree? And were there any others that sort of jump to mind?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's two. Robbie Flower I played on the wing, and Keith Gregg.
Wow.
Yeah, they were guns.
How do you adapt to playing on someone like Keith Gregg and Robbie Flower, just with that poise and their ability to sort of change direction and do all those elegant things? How do you combat that?
Yeah, well, I couldn't compete with them in the air because they were taller than me. But so it was more about getting myself in the right position coming out from defence, where we had pretty good back line back in those days, and I'm talking about Carlton now. With Brucey Dool, Wayne Harms, Curly Austin, Jeff Southby, all those blokes, Desi English, all those blokes were kicking the ball out of defence. So, not saying that I ever beat those blokes, but I competed well against them only because, our team ethos was pretty good.
Amazing. Now, you mentioned earlier that you felt that we would have beaten the Bombers had we have overcome the Hawks on that particular day. Choco and Dougie, they all concur with that. So you genuinely believe that?
Yeah, Matty, I do. I just see that sometimes you line up against a team and you can beat them. And we beat Essendon twice that year. Once at Windy Hill, I think once at Western Oval. And I go back to the point, right back to the days of Carlton, where we beat Hawthorn in the 81-82 season every time. Hawthorn beat Essendon every time, and Essendon beat us every time. It's only lucky that we never fronted Essendon in a final that we were able to get through. My opinion was Essendon had the wood on us, as Footscray had the wood on Essendon back in those days. So, we just matched up beautifully on them.
Right.
I was spewing that we didn't make it because it would have been, I might have got another premiership medal.
It feels like the one that got away for me as a fan as well, but and we had to wait till 2016. So sometimes the wait is worth it, but in your case, I guess it probably burns deep even today. But Shark, when you're hurting, sometimes it's good to get out of the bubble, isn't it? And you did that indeed. You got on a plane and off you flew to Honolulu. I understand. Can you? We've had a few players on here talk about some of the things that went on, including the budgie. Zeno revealed some pretty good stuff, and Neil Cordy as well. From your seat, can you tell us a little bit about what unfolded and share any little insights at all, Shark?
Oh, really, man. Really, I remember everything about that trip, my friend. Where do I start? I don't know. It was a flight to New Zealand first, which started us off, I think, because I'm not proud of it. I don't think any of the players are, as you are well aware, Matt, that we probably had too much alcohol. And it was a long day because we flew to New Zealand and then flew to Honolulu in Hawaii. And there were a few things happened on the plane where people maybe tried to open the door, player unnamed. There might have been people walking down the aisle with a pair of underpants on, spraying underarm. Player unnamed. Well, just a few things that, just didn't go well with the staff on the plane. Yeah, rightfully so, mind you.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, a few of those people have come clean, so but that's a nice extra layer, Shark, that you've added. So we'll. Is there anyone that we should get on the show to ask a few questions? If you could recommend that I ask some questions, who would you tell?
I would get Rick Kennedy on because he was the only sober one on the flight. He would tell you everything that happened.
Yeah, we've had Rick on. He did tell me that. Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. Thanks, Chuck. So let's move to 1986. Things didn't start off very well because you talked about one of your great mateship with Jimmy Edmond, but he was out the door to Sydney. Did he break the news to you on that trip?
No, he didn't.
Wow. Okay.
No, he didn't.
Yep.
No, I rooted with him on that trip.
Whoa.
Yeah, he nearly smashed me through a glass window in a play fight, but anyway, that's another story. No, he never told me he was going to Sydney.
Wow. So there it is. So we lost him as our captain. That season there were a number of injuries. Lully Bamblett, Dougie Hawkins obviously did his famous knee, his ACL, and we just missed out on finals that year, didn't we? Can you recall anything from that campaign?
Well, no. Well, to be honest, I was probably getting a little bit frustrated myself that year, Matt.
Right.
Because Mick was playing me off the bench a lot, and I was sort of wanting some clarity, on, if I get in the top three best players, are you going to play me off the bench again the next week? And there was, Mick in his own defence was saying, well, it depends on the oval, the conditions, the opposition. So I was starting to get a little bit frustrated myself. Not Mick's fault, it's just me wanting to be on the ground at the start of a game. But yeah, it was just one of those years where nothing really went right for us. I still thought we had a pretty good team.
We did?
Yeah, we had a pretty good team, but you need everything to go right, Matt, and we didn't have everything go right for us. And, having good players missing, you can't replace them, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, we certainly lost a few. We gained like the likes of Tony McGuinness. There was a top-up, wasn't there? And What was it like, sort of playing in a midfield that had the likes of Dougie and Choco that you mentioned and McGuinness at points, Stevie Wallace? How was that?
I rate them. Yeah. They were elite. Like they talk about, in today's footy, your A graders, your B graders. They were A graders. Yeah. They were all really good players. Yeah. And, it was a privilege, to play with them and, to be able to be their friend. And I really cherish, playing alongside those sort of blokes because not only were they great players, but they were ripper blokes.
Yes. Brilliant. Well, in that year, the second last game of your career, as it turned out, at the highest level, we played against your team again, Carlton.
Yeah.
And
we beat them, didn't we?
No, we were leading, but they ran over the top of us. And I don't know if you remember, but that was a famous day when Brad came off and the jumper waving sort of thing happened with Mickey.
That day.
That was that day. Yeah. Yeah, that didn't end so well.
No, it didn't. And, that was Brad's personality. And, we all know what Moldhouse is like. He's not going to back down one little inch. And nor he should as coach. So, yeah, it was just one of those years, I think. And I'd sort of made the decision. I still had a year of my contract to go. But I had a meeting with Mick and he hadn't changed his opinion of how he was going to play me. So I just said, well, that's enough for me.
Wow. So your final match was against the Hawks at Western Oval. What was it like then, knowing that the end was there? How was that ending for you?
It wasn't too bad because I think deep inside I'd achieved, because I was no superstar, and I think that I got the most out of myself. I knew I was getting slower. I'd had injuries. I was a Premiership player. I was a prelim player with another club, and I was quite content with giving it away at that point in time.
Wow, amazing. Well, you've mentioned that you've played with some incredible players. I'd love you to. We always ask every guest on this show if they could name their Mount Rushmore of 4 players who had carved their faces into the side of a cliff. Could you name 4 doggy players who'd sort of jump up as your best of all time? That's a hard challenge, I know.
Oh well, you can't go past. You know who I'm going to say, don't you? Yeah, you can't go past the Hawk. All right. I would think. In my time there, I would put Beasley.
Wow.
We're talking about on the face of a cliff. I would put Brian Royal. And I would put Rick Kennedy.
Wow, Rick Kennedy. What'd you love about Rick?
He didn't drink. So he's always good to lean on, especially late at night. He was a great leader and one of the toughest nuts I've ever seen. And I didn't see him get beaten too often. I love the way he played.
Wow, brilliant. Well, he'll love hearing that, Shark. Thank you. So, Dougie tells me that after your playing career finished at the Dogs, in 1987 off you went to Springvale and you're captain coach. You won a premiership.
Yeah.
Amazing. So your success continued and followed you. You went to Eltham. You won a premiership in 2011 at Bundoora. So you've had some success at grassroots level. How fulfilling must that be?
It was good. Like Springvale, I love that club. Yeah. They, I don't know, rightfully so, but they looked up to me immensely, the players here. I think because I'd come from the VFL, and the year before we finished third bottom in first division, and I came there and we recruited Emmett Dunn, Darryl Vernon, who played for the Swans a bit. Paddy Foy was another player who had a higher level experience. We combined those blokes with the young players we had, and it just all clicked. They followed every instruction. They trained hard. They partied hard. And we just had a great year and won the Premiership. And it was very fulfilling, I must admit, mate. I love those players at Springvale too.
Amazing. Yeah, fantastic. I've seen images and just the joy on your face and the players around you is, spine tingling, I imagine.
It doesn't happen every day, Matt, you know. As you know, some players go through 300 games without experiencing it. So it's, when you get it, you go for it.
Now, post-playing, you weren't done with the doggies, were you? You returned as a chairman and selectors and in the coach's box with your old mate, sparring partner, Plough. Is there anything you can share from your time? Obviously, you were there on the old Spew Up Day and you had some amazing days like the 2000 Mission Impossible beating the Bombers Day. Is there anything you can share about any of those experiences?
Plough was very unique. Like Thursday night, we'd have our team meeting and he'd have some theme going. It'd be Batman theme or Superman theme or something happening. And he made us dress up. So we'd have to go into the meeting room where all the players were dressed as Superman, and he was a weird cat that way, but the players loved him and they responded, you know. And that's the main thing. As long as everyone's on board, you know, you can go a long way. And those days were different back then. We trained at 6 o'clock in the morning because we had some blokes who still were working, and yeah, they were long days, very long days. We used to knock off at 2 o'clock and maybe sneak off somewhere, but yeah, it was still good days.
Now, are you still connected with the club today, with the Bulldogs, Shark?
My son is a mad doggies man.
Yes.
So he goes and watches them as much as he can, and so do I.
Unreal.
But I'm not involved in, I'm a member of the past players, but I'm not involved.
Yeah. Well, we've been absolutely honoured, and it's such a privilege to have a chat to you and go down memory lane. Are there any final messages that you might have for Bulldog supporters, and how would you like to be remembered, Shark?
I hope they remember me as a bloke who came there and gave everything he had. I didn't go there for money. I went there because I wanted to keep playing AFL. And the Dogs gave me hope. And I hoped that I at least played with all my heart.
Absolutely. Well, you're a fan favourite for a reason. Doggy supporters remember you like I do so favourably and incredibly. You inspired lots of young people and wore it with pride. That's for sure. And we just absolutely love you, Phil. So, on behalf of all the Western Bulldogs supporters and viewers of Inside the Kennel, I just want to say a huge thank you, ladies and gentlemen, Phil Maylin.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks, Shark.
White in my veins, blue in my eye, red, white, and blue in my brain. I'm